President Joe Biden has stumbled into the election campaign, proving that his best contribution would really be to keep his mouth shut. His abuse of Donald Trump's supporters will be a real dampener on the final days of the campaign for the Democrats. The fallout continues too from Donald Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden on Monday, with Democrats and some in the media comparing it to a pro-Nazi event held nearby in the 1930s. Trump has scoffed at them.
The love in that room, it was breathtaking. There's never been an event so beautiful. It was like a love fest, an absolute love fest, and it was my honor to be involved.
New York is, of course, a Democrat stronghold, but the former president styled himself as a homecoming champion. Kristen Tate gave us her take.
Oh, people loved it. Donald Trump is a New Yorker. That's where he's from. And there are lots of people in New York who love Donald Trump. Although, yes, it's a blue state. I was there in New York City on election night in 2016, and it was incredible as they called the states for Donald Trump in Times Square. It felt like the whole city was bursting out in applause. There are lots of working people in that city, the firefighters, the cops, just the people going to work every day who are very patriotic. They love Donald Trump, and these are the people who go to the rallies. And you know what? You gotta love Donald Trump for going to Madison Square Garden and these other places in New York, showing love to his supporters, even though it is a blue state and he won't win it. He still goes there and gives love to his supporters there in the blue states.
But incredibly, the Democrats, they just can't help themselves. The vice presidential candidate, Tim Walz, compared it to a Nazi rally from the 1930s. And even now, he's not backtracking from that claim. Have a look.
You stand by that comparison, though, to a Nazi rally?
Look, the rally, you saw it for yourself. I'll let the American public make the decision of what they saw.
What about you, though?
So I know what I saw, and I'll just leave it at that.
And even worse, the presidential candidate, the sitting vice president, refused to repudiate those claims.
Do you find that a similar comparison?
Listen, this election is in 7 days, and I think the American people have a very clear choice. And on the one hand, you have Donald Trump, who is constantly fanning the flames of division and hate.
Kristen, we keep saying this is desperate, but is it cutting through? Do people really see this as a choice between the Democrats and some fascist?
Well, the very liberal voters do, and that is the goal of Kamala Harris and her running mate, Tim Walz, is to just drive out their base to the polls. This is all about mobilization at this point. There is a segment of the population here in the country who truly has Trump derangement syndrome. These are the people who sit around their houses all day, every day, watching MSNBC and CNN and being told by the TV that Trump is a no good, very bad orange man who wants to do horrible things and he'll be a dictator and all of this. So when they say these things, Chris, that is the segment of the population they are talking to. They are trying to drive out their base. Will this work with moderate voters or independents? No, but that's not who they're trying to get to the polls with that messaging.
Yeah, but that's what tells me that they're really desperate. They realise that they're behind in this electoral contest, and it's just their base. They have to get their base out there because they want to minimise their losses. We will see. I'll get to your thoughts on that in a moment. But one of the lowlights from that Madison Square Gardens rally for Donald Trump was the comedian. Tony Hinchcliffe is his name. They get a comedian to come on and crack a few jokes, and he cracked this one.
There's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico.
Well, that's pretty derogatory towards Puerto Rico and Puerto Ricans, and I've shown our viewers earlier in the week how the vice presidential Republican candidate, J.D. Vance, dealt with that topic pretty well. But now the Democrats seem to be turning it into an own goal. I want to show you two comments from the president, Joe Biden, where first he sort of infers wanting to kill or drown the comedian, and then he calls Donald Trump's supporters garbage. Have a look.
Well, I'd take that guy for a swim out there. Anyway. Stenny's looking at me. Don't get going, Joe. Don't get going, Joe. Slow up. Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
Kristen, we've been down this road before with Hillary Clinton and the deplorables. This is the Democrats slurring any Trump voters. Is this a pretty bad mistake just less than a week out from polling day?
Of course. And, you know, I actually, whatever you think about that specific joke or the comedian, it was clearly a strategic decision by the Trump campaign to put that comedian there. We know this comedian makes jokes like this. He has a track record of it. And now the Trump campaign has put the left and the Democrats in a position where in a week before the election, they are out there complaining and pearl clutching about a joke. The left is completely devoid of humor, and also they've trapped Joe Biden and Kamala Harris into making comments like the one you just referenced by Biden. So yes, this looks very bad. We all know how the deplorables comment played out for Hillary Clinton, and we may be seeing a repeat of that now, just a week before the election.
And of course, Kristen, tonight your time, Kamala Harris has addressed a rally outside the Capitol, drawing direct references to what happened there on January the 6th, 2021. Have a look.
We know who Donald Trump is. He is the person who stood at this very spot nearly 4 years ago and sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol to overturn the will of the people in a free and fair election. An election that he knew he lost. Americans died as a result of that attack.
Well, Kristen, does this fall into the same category as the fascist attack, really trying to mobilise the base? We know there's all sorts of misinformation and errors perpetrated about what happened on January the 6th, including the fact, of course, the person who was shot and killed was a protester, and we had a police officer die of a heart attack and all the rest of it. What's your take on her tactic there tonight?
When the vast majority of Americans hear Kamala Harris talk like that, they roll their eyes and they yawn. It just doesn't work anymore. They have been screaming for 8 years straight about Donald Trump being a big, scary dictator. Guess what? Donald Trump was president for 4 years. We have seen what he did. We have a track record there. We also now have a track record of 4 years of Kamala Harris. This line of attack, I just don't suspect it's going to be very effective this time around, Chris.
Yeah, and Kristen, just quickly, do you see Donald Trump returning to the White House in January next year?
If I had to put my money on it right now, I would say yes. All the momentum seems to be with Donald Trump right now.
Yeah, fascinating stuff. Certainly the polls trending his way too. Thanks for talking to us. Can't wait to catch up next week.
Really looking forward to it. Thank you, Chris.